What I think really helps fuel some of this is the blind nature of it, right? So if you are the person who wants to go, we say this all the time, if you're the one who wants to go stand in line at the drop at a liquor store, if you're the one who wants to wait for a specific bottle to come out here and there, we're not the right club for you, right? You want someone to join this club who's open to trying new things, open to looking for the bottle that everyone doesn't already have. And we spend a lot of time, right? My biggest job now is trying to work with partners to find the bottle that, oh, I can find them in the store down the street. Well, what else do you have when we go deeper into the portfolio? What else do you have that maybe we can't find everywhere that people will be really excited to get on that? And then when they open that box.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another brand new episode of Bourbon Pursuit. It's the official podcast of Bourbon. I'm Kenny Coleman.
Ron Cecil here.
Fred Minnick.
And we're going to be talking about subscription programs. I mean, this is something that I have been, it's been around forever. I think it's been around for my longest time of memory is Christmas Vacation with the Jelly of the Month Club.
Yeah.
Right. And so
or Bacon of the Month.
Yeah. You get something of the month clubs. And these are awesome because they're perfect for gifts. They're perfect for exploration. They're awesome for anybody that is truly a aficionado of anything. Like I said, if you love jelly, you would probably subscribe to a Jelly of the Month Club because you want jellies that you can't get in your section of the world. So that's kind of like the big thing about it. So I'm excited to kind of dive in and talk about really whiskey subscriptions and sort of like how that model's changed over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you think about it, the thing is like, well, the platforms for jellies and things like that have been around forever. It's still new for alcohol because of the vast amount of regulations that are tied into it. And I remember the first one that I can think of was probably Jim Beam. Jim Beam came out with one of those kind of like membership services. And then you started seeing, companies come out with it. Like Blind Barrels is one I can think of. Just so it's still relatively new, and I think a lot of kinks are getting worked out because of the ever-changing 3-tier system, which is Ryan's favorite subject.
I think it's all of our favorite subjects. It works so well, No, but yeah, subscription models are fun. Like my daughter got one for a baking club this year, and it's like she gets a new baking thing, and I think it's just an awesome way for fans that are interested in a specific type of product or a category like whiskey, and it is a fun way to just explore as a fan of these categories. And so I'm with shipping laws that are kind of in limbo, some are relaxed, some haven't, and it's become more possible than it ever has, but there's still some things to work out. But I'm excited to talk about the business side of it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and I think the fun part, you're talking about your daughter who has the craft, the scent, right? The project. What I think really helps fuel some of this is the blind nature of it, right? So if you are the person who wants to go, we say this all the time, if you're the one who wants to go stand in line at the drop at a liquor store, if you're the one who wants to wait for a specific bottle to come out here and there, we're not the right club for you, right? You want someone to join this club who's open to trying new things, open to looking for the bottle that everyone doesn't already have. And we spend a lot of time, right? My biggest job now is trying to work with partners to find the bottle that, oh, I can find them in the store down the street. Well, what else do you have when we go deeper into the portfolio? What else do you have that maybe we can't find everywhere that people will be really excited to get on that? And then when they open that box.
Man, you just jumped in right there. Didn't even wait a second.
Sounds like he doesn't have a Weller of the Month club.
Greg Cohen needs no introduction, everybody. He introduced himself.
No. So you've heard our guest right there. So our guest today is Greg Cohen. He is the man that's behind another whiskey subscription service called Pour More. So Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Sorry, I was very excited to jump in. We were vibing, so I was figured let's
just dive in. You got to bring in all the.
He's like, am I going to get to talk?
You get Ryan, Fred, and myself going. It's just like, well, you're going to play second fiddle to this. No, I'm glad you did that. But Greg, before we start talking about a lot of the subscription models and sort of how that world is continually changing, kind of give sort of like your background. What made you want to get into this? Where and when did the whiskey bug hit you, or did you just say like, I think there's an untapped potential here that I could build something really cool?
Yeah, so the Port Board's been around for about 9, almost 10 years now. So it was started by two other founders who helped build it, and they were seeing opportunity in the market to kind of work with distributors, and it's kind of the early age of the subscription in the whiskey business, right? So Fred's talking about people who have figured out how to navigate the 3-tier system and to distribute in a shipping way. And then it was really great through COVID, right? They hit the kind of the COVID jump, and the of the month clubs were skyrocketing, liquor sales were skyrocketing, and so there was this big bourbon jump during COVID, which we all saw. And then I came on post COVID through my brother, who's one of the co-founders, and so I've been involved with the company for a little over 2 years now. And really, what I came in to do was more the marketing and branding side of it. Was they did so well on the, hey, we're just going to ship stuff out, but we hadn't done much around building distributor and building distiller relationships, building a bigger, social media content engine, and doing more kind of custom brand, custom bottling work. And so the focus of the last 2 years has been, how do we build that relationship with our customers? How do we build feedback loops, right? So every month people get a form they can go fill out so they can tell us did they like it, did they not? And we've used that to help adjust the clubs, whether it's in the whiskey club or the Scotch club, trying to hone in people's tastes. Because obviously when you have so many bottles going out, everyone's got different tastes, but we look for trends in the feedback, especially as we use AI on that to figure out how people are adjusting to different brand profiles and what we think people are going to want in their bottles. So my job has really been to hone in on the customer voice, look at the trends happening in the space, and how do we find producers who have cool stories to tell? Because it's really easy to go to the store and buy a bottle, but how do we find bottles that have faces behind them and stories behind them that we think are compelling to put on your bar? So when someone says, hey, what's that bottle? They know more than just what the bottle is, but they know where it came from and what the story is.
So what was your background that made I think you said it was your brother or brother-in-law. Why'd they bring you in? What was your background in?
You're trying to be like, what makes you so special, Greg?
Yeah. But nepotism. It's mostly nepotism.
That's right.
But it's I'm a marketer by trade. So corporate consulting, digital. So I do website, social, digital. Right? That's always been my background. I've always enjoyed whiskey. So I had a whiskey club here in Atlanta for about 10 years. It was a monthly club where guys got together, and the rule was you couldn't bring the same bottle twice. And I was the steward of the list. And so we had a giant Google sheet. I still have it. Of every bottle we ever brought over that sort of like 8 to 10 year period. And so the rule was when they showed up, they had to check the list before they went to the store and go find something new. And it wasn't the kind of place where we had tasting notes or even like ranked whether we liked the bottle or not. It was just a chance to try stuff new as things were really exploding. So I had a group of it's like 12, 13 guys. We get together on a bi-monthly basis. And so I always had a big interest in whiskey and bourbon as a fun topic. And I was always a digital marketing person. And so when my brother and his partner got into this, I was like, hey man, let me come play. This is like the intersection of all the things I like to do. And so once we kind of pulled that together, then it was a chance for me to come in and do both the content creation and digital stuff that I enjoyed doing, but also get to dive deeper into this business of whiskey, more than just having it on the bar, but going deeper into like the stories and the process and the 3-tier system. And also as you get into the custom barreling, custom projects, and see how you really bring the personality of the distiller or the blender to life, because a lot of the juice is coming from the same places. So how do you put your unique spin on that each time?
Yeah, totally. And I guess kind of talk us more about like those early days. You said Pourmore is around 9 or 10 years old right now. You came in probably not at the very beginning, but was it started mainly as whiskey subscription or bourbon, or has it like grown since then, where you see people asking for new things?
So it was whiskey, bourbon, Scotch, tequila, mezcal, rum, and rosé at the time.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot to just bite off in one fell swoop there.
Yeah. And at the beginning, I think it was less. It was probably, I don't know the exact story at the beginning, but I think it was like, hey, if I'm already going to get 2 or 3 of these things, why not do all of them? Because you've got other clubs out there. I won't name the big ones, but you guys know them. There's a bunch out there, and they have whiskey, bourbon focuses. You already mentioned blind barrels, right? But there aren't many that do the full gamut. And once you're doing one, you can do a bunch. So we ended up cutting rosé out a few years ago. It was too far afield. But as tequila and mezcal have been on the rise, that's been a fun one to play in the space of, and meeting with the tequila and mezcal producers, especially during the tariff discussions recently, has been really interesting, and like, their existential crises. And so that's, just different perspectives on that. The one we probably don't spend as much time on is the rum club, but I've met with 2 or 3 different rum people in the last couple of weeks about, different age rums. And one of my favorite interviews we did this past year was a Kentucky boy who went and created his Panama rum company, and it kind of tastes like a bourbon brought into the rum world. So just, his story background, you wouldn't have known that. The brand is a Panamanian rum company, but you wouldn't know there's a Kentucky background bring that sort of bourbon mindset to the rum world. So that's what the intersection between these worlds is really fun.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing I want to kind of also understand is customer acquisition. What does it take to actually start something like this? Because I'm sure there's people that are listening to this and they're like, hey, I've joined a Whiskey of the Month Club, or some people are looking at this and going, hey, this would be a fun business to do. And we always tell people, even getting in the whiskey business, don't do it. Like there's a lot of other ways to go try to make some money here without, trying to rip your hair out all the time. But kind of talk about sort of that customer acquisition journey. Like what's it go to actually get the name of Pour More out there into the mind share of the broader audience?
Yeah, one of the best things that happened to us was pretty early on, kind of like right as I started. One of the first things we were able to do was get secure our name on food and wine and liquor.com, like top lists. And that was just through a series of, hey, try the product out. We sent them some product. It was not paid, right? They just wanted to try out the experience. And we were on a top list for top whiskey club, top bourbon club, top Scotch club across like 3 or 4 sites. And then just this past, like in June, right before Father's Day, which was great. I mean, we were named the best bourbon club for gifting. So amongst all the clubs that are out there, we were the one that was highlighted for gifting, mostly because we do have a variation, right? So if you want to do whiskey or tequila, whatever, like we have options. We also do easy multi-month prepay. So you can do a 3-month prepay, a 6-month gift, or a 12-month gift. And obviously there's price breaks along the way. But the idea there was like, we just wanted to give people flexible options for giving gifts, right? We don't want to, it'd be easy. Like there's a marketing theory of like, hey, just sell like 2 or 3 SKUs, just do 2 or 3 things, do those really, really well. And so we do focus on them when we're promoting. We focus on more the 3 and 6 month. But the reality is people want to be able to give a gift in the way they want to give a gift. And so we give you options to expand and contract if you want to give monthly, bi-monthly. And that kind of flexibility and the ease of it is what I think has made it easy for people to work with us. So for your question about what does it take to bring in new customers, there are kind of 2 different customer personas, right? So you've got the whiskey bros, the people who want to try new whiskey, who want to get it. And so that's the people who, again, not the ones who want to wait in the line, not the ones who want the new Blanton's release, right? It's the ones who are willing to try new things, who already have a bunch of bottles in their bar, who are like, give me something I can't find. Give me something new, and not just some single barrel from a brand I already know. Like, give me something really interesting.
All right, Greg, I need you to define a whiskey bro. Like, give me the entire specs of this person. What do they do? What's their age range? You bringing that up, you've obviously had marketing meetings about this, so define whiskey bro for me.
All right. So what I'm gonna tell you, when I started working on what our social media strategy was going to be, is how we wanted to be different. And this is not meant to be on anyone, because I fall into some of this category as well. But there is no lack of people on YouTube who are middle-aged dudes who've got beards.
Oh wow!
Who sit in front of a bar and
How weird.
put a bottle on the table, put a glass on the table, and pour it, and then they try it. Right. And they talk about it. Right. So it's 1 guy, 2 guys. And, that is what the whiskey tube, whiskey talk, whiskey gram looks like, is people doing that. And so what I wanted
there are a ton of beards.
like,
I'm thinking through them all.
Everybody's got a beard.
Everybody's got a beard.
Except
a lot of beards. Yeah. So when I talked with my partners, I was like, look, this is what it looks like. Right. And not everyone has a beard. I've got a couple of friends who don't have the beards. And
Kenny
we laugh about it, but it's
Kenny
like,
so is Kenny not a whiskey bro?
I got some scruff.
No.
He's not a whiskey bro. All right.
But what I didn't want to do was be the same company that puts the bottle on the table and says, let me tell you what I like about this, right? Because there's Fred, you do tons of content like this, right? So we can't compete there. It's not going to be the same thing. So what we do for our social content is we try to interview the distillers, right? So we sit down one-on-one in Instagram Live. We do it live. So it's a little less manicured. It's just on the take. and then we slice and dice it into smaller clips. But I want to talk to the founder or the brand manager if it's a larger brand. I want to talk to the distiller, the blender, whoever they want to have talk to. We want to sit down and we want to put the face. So it's not about me drinking. And honestly, I am not very good at giving tasting notes. So I go through and I talk about what I like and I enjoy. But I want to have them tell their story and talk through stuff. And like, to me, that's the most important part is people put so much of themselves into these bottles in this process, right? It's the person. My favorite question to ask is, we've all sat around a campfire, and it goes the same question you asked, Kenny. We've all sat around a campfire. We've all sat around saying, you know what we need? We need to make our own whiskey. We could do this. There's no, if they did it, we can do it. And it never leaves the chat, right? It never goes from there doing something. But the people who do it, they pull the resources, they get their spouse on board. Maybe it's a husband-wife combo. I've had a couple of those. And they put the grit in and they stick it out. And so giving them a chance to tell their story in a new venue, because not all of them get a chance to do press releases and out there and different places. So giving us a chance to work with emerging brands that we think are, could be award winners or people who already won some local awards. That's a big thing for us because it's just like we're helping to bring people to the table who might not otherwise get a chance.
Okay, so I like Fred. He kind of coined and said, describe me a bourbon bro. So I had mentioned your customer acquisition strategy, and you get some recognition through the top list, the listicles and everything like that. Are you also heavy into like meta advertising or anything like that to try to gain new subscribers?
Yeah, so we want to go the marketing route. So so we do meta ads. We've done influencer work. TikTok doesn't like alcohol quite so much, like from selling. So we haven't done a lot of TikTok ads, but meta ads for sure. We do a pretty good, robust email program. The thing that we've found, so I talked about the whiskey bro, like we're talking about the whiskey buyer. The other buyer, which is why it's interesting to talk about meta, is it's the gift giver who is not the whiskey person, right? So we're talking to, not the stereotype, but we're talking to the wives, the mothers, the grandmothers, the daughters. Not that there will be plenty of women. I've interviewed plenty of women who are in the whiskey world, but if you're getting into digital marketing targeting, we're looking at spouses and partners who are buying for their other significant other, and they're like, you know what? I could go down to the store and buy a bottle. Who knows? Do I know what to buy? I could go find this, that, the other. He might already have it. I don't know. But when I give a multi-month gift, the thing about the box showing up and opening the box and being like, oh, what am I getting this time? And especially when it's over a 3-month, a 6-month, or even the 12-month period. Like, I loved it. One of my favorite ads was like, you're going to get credit all year long, right? So you're going to give the gift for Christmas now, and then you're going to open a bottle every single month for next year. And then when they go to buy you a gift next year, like you put 12 months of credit in, like you're going to get something real good next year, right? So this is like a relationship investment, right? So the idea is like, it's giving the multi-month experience beyond just like, if you just give a bottle, you're giving the chance to open the bottle and then you drink it. When you give the subscription, you're giving the experience of like getting the box, opening it up. And even though it's not like a, we don't have things jumping out at you. It's not some major reveal, but it is like, I don't know what this is. I'm going to open up and see what it is. And we have a couple people who post on Instagram and who like open the box up and they pull it out. I never heard of this before. And they pour it live and they drink it and they talk about it. So it's really fun to see those videos of like, I blind opened it. I literally opened it and poured it right away. Let's talk about it. So like, yes. So on the meta side, we've done some work with influencers who want to talk about opening boxes up and talking about the experience of opening blind and seeing what it is. And, sometimes we'll send them some of those more specialty bottles that we've crafted with partners, to show them like this is the kind of bottles we try to send out.
So you are in a space that gets an overwhelming amount of complaints. Like, I have never met a retailer or anyone who is consumer facing in this business that just doesn't have a litany of complaints on a regular basis. Like, how do you manage that, and where do you think a lot of that comes from in the bourbon space?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's 2 tiers of complaints, right? So we catalog everything. I run AI analysis and all the work, so we kind of can continue to bubble up comments, and they come from 2 things. One, and this is very rare, someone gets a bottle, they're like, what was this? Like, I don't like this flavor, what it was. And it's one thing if someone's like, I didn't like this. And we're like, well, okay. But if someone came back and was like, this is really outside of my flavor profile, I really didn't like this. that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen occasionally, in which case we're happy to help refund or send you a new bottle, right? If it really is like, you're like, oh, this is not my style, I would never open this bottle again, we don't want you to have that experience. So that has happened occasionally. It's very rare. For the most part, what happens, and it goes to our 3-tier system and the alcohol laws, is there's a hard time getting alcohol shipped, right? And so if you are not there to sign for it, it goes, you get the dreaded note on your door. You've got to work through FedEx, right? So we can't always control that. We go through a series of, whether it's FedEx or it's local couriers, right? Depending on what the state laws require. We distribute out of California. So it all starts from one point and it goes to all the states that we're legally allowed to ship to. And that is where most of the consternation comes in, because people, we cut off subscriptions the 4th of every month. So the 4th around like 10 p.m. is when I shut it off. And then we start packaging I mean our distributor starts packaging between the 5th and the 15th of the month, and they start being sent out. So you might receive your bottle on the 12th, you might receive your bottle on the 22nd. My data shows that most people get their boxes between like the 15th and the 20th. So people have gotten pretty used to that cadence, but sometimes it gets delayed. Sometimes the product is slow to go out. Sometimes the shipping system is bad. Sometimes the delivery to the courier is messed up because of the multi-state rules. And so that really does put us at a disadvantage because we have no control over it. And what I think, there's some solace in the fact that like we have the same problem that everybody else does, right? We're all in the same boat in terms of how things get shipped out, unless you're doing it by bike messenger. But for the most part, we're at the mercy of the system. And so that's a hard message to deliver, which is like, we can't control it, but we hear you and we're going to help make it right for you in a future month.
How do you navigate the pricing complaints? Because that comes up a lot in everything I've seen. And there's a lot of times there's not a thing you can do about the pricing. Like you have to, you're in a business, you're not in the charity game, so you got to make money. But how do you navigate that side of the complaints?
Yeah, the pricing piece is difficult, but to me it becomes more manageable as you start to control. Like the more we plan ahead. So if you are pulling bottles that are just, let's see what we can find and we'll send those out, and you haven't really worked a strategy about like how to bring the value of these bottles, that's where you're going to run into, because people are like, oh, this, I paid $50 a month for this bottle, but I found it for $38 down the street. I found it online for $38. What the hell, right? And we used to have those more. As we've gotten into being better pre-planners and better working on this sort of more differentiated side, right? Like I'm not trying to run a low-cost strategy. I'm not trying to run the cheapest program out there. Like I'm not doing that, even though based on the research, we are probably one of the cheaper programs in the market. We spend a lot of time on calling out the bottom end, right? So we're not going to send out bottles that are $38. We're looking for bottles that retail for about the same price that we're aiming for, or we're going to work on negotiating bottles that you are not going to be able to find somewhere, right? So even if you could buy it online, they're sold out. Or even if you could find it somewhere, you probably would never have chosen that bottle. And we try to factor in the shipping costs, right? So the retail cost is what the retail cost is, and we really trade on the retail costs. If you're buying things online from any of the people who work around industry, it's all about the same amount for shipping. Everyone charges about $18 to $20 for shipping, no matter if you're the giant retailers or whatever. People will give you free shipping if you're buying over like $300 or something. But the reality is if you're buying 3 months from us, that's 3 months of shipping. And like you're buying an e-commerce product that has to be shipped and they're heavy. So we just sort of make that as part of the story, part of the experience. And we add the shipping on later so that you're not conflating the price of the bottle with the price of the shipping. Other clubs, again, it's a pricing strategy, right? Other clubs bake the price right in and they say, here's what the whole thing costs, including shipping. But we want to make sure that people can identify, here's how much I paid for the bottle, here's how much it all comes together, and then shipping is on top of that. So the more we've worked with brands to find the specialty bottles, the less I worry about price, because it's not the same thing as walking down the street and you can't just buy it online.
Yeah, it's all about access at times, right? Kind of talk about your pricing strategy and the levels that you're trying to hit in regards of the consumer base.
Yeah, so our prices, so for bourbon and whiskey, we have an intro club at $50, then we have an explorer club at $80, and then in the whiskey category only, we have an enthusiast club, which is at $120 a month. And so that is, when you look at the data about how much bottles cost, those are kind of the categories they fall into, right? So you've got an level pricing for a lot of bottles that falls at 50. Of course, there's a bunch that fall into the $25 to $35 level. There's probably not a e-commerce purpose for that, right? So if you're looking at the ultra cheap bottle kind of buy price, you should go to local liquor store and get some of those really great value buys that are out there. Like, there are no lack of YouTube channels to help you point you towards the right bottles at that level.
The top 10 bottom shelf whiskeys for August of 2025. Right.
Yeah. The orange label one, we know it's great bottles out there if that is your price level, go buy in person because the e-commerce product is not right for you. Alternatively, like people who are looking to buy the premium online experience, like those are going to be the price levels. So we've done a bunch of analysis of where people are, like where the bottle costs are. You're seeing things in the $50 to $60 price range for that intro level in the market. We're starting to see it creep up to 65 in some areas. You see this sort of area of 75 to 95 now, like this. It's getting a little closer to 100. People have moved up to this sort of like sub 100 price point. So you're seeing this sort of like $89 to $95 price point. They don't want to go over 100 because that means something, but people are willing to pay that higher tier price. And then above that, you work into like a 110 to 125. And then you start to get above that. And if you're going to pay above 150, like everyone's got their limit, right? Like what you're going to pay for, but there's definitely a pricing strategy at like 150 to 185, 200 to 215, right? So you got these sort of tiers that kind of go up. And at that point, it's a lot of pricing strategy as opposed to necessarily cost.
Talk about your,
in my opinion,
your vetting process of bringing new products out. Like it sounds like, obviously you got to have quality liquid, but it sounds like there's a lot of things going into it. As you mentioned, like you don't want people to be able to go to the store and find it themselves and whatnot. So talk about everything that your checklist of things that like, all right, this is a fit for us. And we think it's something we should offer our customers.
Yeah. One of my favorite things we started doing like whole month takeovers, right? So especially in the whiskey and bourbon. So again, I have 5 clubs in whiskey and bourbon, and we just started doing these branded takeovers where we're going to have a brand come in and we'll have at different price at all 5 levels, products that fit that. So we will tell that, and we get to tell a whole brand story across the portfolio. And even though as a given consumer, I'm only getting one bottle, we get to tell a story across the portfolio, and then we'll do email content, social content. We'll tell the portfolio story around it. And so that's becomes a bigger story there. When we can't do that, then we have criteria with our distributor where we say, hey, I want to find bottles that fit a certain price point, right? Again, to your point, it's a business. I got to make the money. And they need to have, won some sort of award recognition, right? They've got to be local, regional, whatever it is, like help us, or hopefully ideally double gold San Francisco kind of stuff, but not everyone can find it all the time.
It's only platinum.
But that's what we work on. Right? We kind of work through a series of filters and criteria. So we work through a series of criteria to say, like, we want to find things that have gotten local recognition because we can't taste everything. I try to taste as much as we can, especially now we do we do the takeovers. I do taste it all because that needs to be a cohesive brand story. But when it's going to be other months we slot stuff in, we just went through a list of criteria and we want to make sure it fits it. Like one of the ones we did recently that I had never heard of, I'm so glad we did, was from Highwire Distilling. It was Jimmy Redcorn bourbon. And I had never heard of it, and we did it. And I got an interview with Scott, the co-founder, and walking through his story about resurrecting the red corn as a plant. Like it was in the Clemson like archives. And this guy was like, oh, this thing that no one's ever seen before. We could try it, and he made it come out of nothing. Like that was a story that came from the distributor. He's like, hey, you should try this because it's getting some recognition. This thing sold out really fast when it first launched, and then come to find out that like. Julian Van Winkle called it the next best collectible whiskey, something like that. And I had never heard that until we had this interview, and I was like, oh, like our guys came through for us, right? So that was a cool thing where like we set the criteria out, and our partners know what we're looking for. And I can't be the expert everywhere, so knowing that we rely on our partners and tastemakers, and Fred, we go through the Ascot Awards. We have the ASW one we're doing next month. One of them is a Platinum Ascot Award winner. That we're excited about. So yeah, so we're looking for the people who do this all the time to look for your expertise, because that's a way for us to help make sure that we're delivering value. And honestly, people can't always find those bottles, right? Those things don't exist out in the world for everybody. So when we're able to get our hands on them, it feels like a big win for us.
so say I'm a customer and I get a bottle and I'm like, I absolutely, and say like half of your list is like, this one's like amazing. And are you like, well, will you do it again like next year, or am I going to have to wait? How does that, as a consumer, like if I'm like, I'm really excited about this product, I can only get it through you. When's the next time I can get it?
We won't do the same brand for another year, or sorry, the same product for a year. Like, so we have a hard, fast rule about that. What I have been working on implementing, because it's a really great question. I've been trying to implement a new reby system, right? So if you liked it, we don't run like a bottle shop, right? Like, again, our competitors don't run bottle shops. We don't run that infrastructure, but I do run special occasions, special releases, flash sales for members, that kind of stuff. So really, really limited, really curated list of stuff. And so one of the things I've been looking to do is a rebuy program. So let's say we've done the shipping out and I've got, I don't know, 7 bottles left. I might make, the first 7 people who want to respond back and buy it again, we'll send it to you. Right. So like, but we're not, again, I don't hold inventory, or we don't hold a bunch of inventory elsewhere. And we're not looking to, if our partners had like 800 bottles that's on the shelf because they can't sell it, we don't want to sell it either. So we're looking for stuff that's gonna be hard to find. But if I got extra bottles, the program I want to put in place next is a rebuy program to say, yeah, I want that bottle again, and we'll just run it.
Yeah, I remember when we talked about you having some sort of, you were like, hey, if there's any specialty bottles, we can always add these as kind of like one-time kind of runoffs and stuff like that, which is a good way to kind of keep people energized and reinvigorated in the program about stuff that they enjoyed that they might be able to get again, or hopefully they can get it for them, vice versa and stuff like that. I'm sure that, when we talk about your customers and going through what retention looks like, I'm sure you have some sort of like exit interview, or like, hey, just fill out the survey. Like, is it just because things are over and you didn't feel like renewing? Kind of talk about what you need to go through for customer retention.
Yeah, the most common reason we lose people is they say, I've got too much on my bar, right? I've got too much inventory, I backed up, and it doesn't happen after 3 months, right? People, we've had some customers, by the way, who've been with us for like 5 or 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And I have several customers, it still blows my mind. I have several customers who have like 4 to 6 subscriptions every month.
Oh, geez.
So they're getting like 4 to 6 bottles every month. I mean, yes. And, maybe they're doing it for client gifts. Like, I have no idea. And they just keep going. We make sure we keep them happy, and whatever they need, we help them with. But for the most part, people say, I've got too much. I can't drink it. I can't drink it fast enough, which is, we're not telling everyone to go drink it faster. But, I do think there are opportunities people to think about how they host. One of the things we talked about doing was, how can we incent more, how do you host more tasting opportunities, right? So if you're getting a bottle, you're opening it on your own, and you're tasting your own, and you're just enjoying it on your own, you're not gonna go through a bottle very fast, and that's totally your experience. But again, you used to have a whiskey club. I had a bourbon club. So, I would bring a bottle to a bourbon club. I'd bring it to my group, and I'd group with a bunch of friends, and you got 8 guys on a bottle a night, that bottle's gone. So, we're trying to look about what are the group events that people want to be hosting as the events, and make the bottles more of an event and a party, as opposed to just that thing on my shelf that I try once and don't touch it again, right? Because that's not our audience. Our audience is not necessarily the collector. Sometimes it's people who want to have something new on their bar so their friends are impressed, or they want to ask the question about it. So people bounce because they've got too much. They also bounce because over time, they just sort of don't want to do it anymore, right? We've gone through their whiskey phase, their bourbon phase, and they're going to move on to whatever their next thing is going to be. And so that's fine. People who don't want to do it anymore. The ones that we do fight pretty hard on is like, hey, this got too expensive, right? I didn't want to pay for it anymore. Because if that's the issue, like, we can move you to a lower tier if you want, or we can move you to every other month as opposed to just monthly. So if it's just, you're paying too much every month, how about you do every other month? How about we make it a little bit easier for you? We can give you some other options there. And then we try to also emphasize the value, right? We're emphasizing, you're going to get bottles here that you're not going to find other places. So if you're still interested in the category, you might want to stick around and get new bottles, just because you won't find these anywhere else for the most part.
Is there a communal aspect to your customer base? Do you give them like a platform to where they can maybe get together and go through the bottle of the month, or go sit on a live Zoom call with you or someone? Is there anything like that in the Pour More system? It's really fun. That's when we've talked about most interesting. One of our customers suggested that. They're like, hey, would there be an opportunity to do a live tasting together?
And so I was thinking about a way to do it instead of doing it with me or with our members. Is maybe I could set up with the distillers, right? So if they would want to host a live tasting together, so you get your bottle, you sit down together, and on the 15th of this month, so and so will be hosting a live tasting. Anyone can join. Bring your bottle with you, ask questions, right? Getting the commitment from the brands will not always be easy. But I think, especially for those monthly takeovers, it could be a really good chance to get, a couple hundred people onto one big webinar with a brand who wants to do a live tasting with this audience. So it is something that I would love to work the logistics on. We have not done it yet.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great way to, because, even with us, we created an amazing community around Burn Pursuit and Pursuit Spirits, and it's a way to like have that community engage around those products, and then they meet each other and this and that. It seemed like create another bourbon club, but virtual one.
Yeah. The customer feedback is so important to us because we've learned a lot over the years. One of the things, so the whiskey club, it was broad whiskey, right? So it could be bourbon, it could be rye, it could be American single malt, it could be Scotch, it could be Japanese, it could be Irish, right? So we were it was a grab bag of all whiskeys. And what we learned in the feedback process, for instance, was that when we sent peaty scotches to that group, we got a lot of complaints. And because
those are my people then. There we go.
Right. And so you pulled it and you're like, oh, okay. So now the rule from now on is peaty scotches don't get sent to the whiskey club. In fact, if you're going to send a scotch to the whiskey club, it needs to be a little bit more on the neutral side as opposed to the kind of the more polarizing of the Scotch family. If you're in the Scotch club, there's no holds barred. We're going to let it rip. And if you complain about a peaty scotch, well, that's the Scotch category sometimes, and that's not your favorite bottle. But the whiskey, we learned about that. So we're building this sort of feedback loop. We have not built the outward community quite as much, but it's something I would really like to really spend more time on, especially if we do these branded takeovers where I have more interaction with the brand ahead of time to be able to plan this out. Say, as part of your takeover, we'd like to have you commit to doing a live tasting with anyone who gets a bottle. They can join this Zoom call, and we'll go from it.
Yeah, I'd say, Greg, that this is this is the kind of thing that is basically preserving whiskey right now. Like the people who are subscribers, people who are like meeting up on Zoom calls. Those are the people that are going to be drinking whiskey in good times and bad, and they're not chasing trends. And I love the story of they're like, don't send me the beat, don't send me the beat of whiskey, because I've seen that a lot. It's funny. And one of the things that terrifies me is not the state of the market or what generation's drinking or not. It's these attorney generals in states like Michigan that target you. And I'm curious, I look at you as an incredible advocate for the whiskey world. And you're probably having to fight some battles in the courts that people don't see. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've had in some states where you've had to get a cease and desist, you go back and forth? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So Michigan is the one that we had to pull out of. We have not had to do any major legal battles. So I would say that we are, we're not going to be the vanguard in that fight. I don't think. There are probably other companies that are better funded than us to really take the fight for some of those things. Michigan was one that we had to pull out. We had people who were in Michigan. We had subscribers there. We had to kind of talk to them about what happened and had to pull out, which was really unfortunate. But we are not the ones on the forefront fighting the fight, at least not yet.
I'm sure it's not a battle anybody really wants to get into, right? That's not.
It's coming though.
Yeah,
it's coming. Yeah.
Well, speaking of what's coming, we kind of put the cart before the horse here. One of the things that is happening is that Pursuit is actually doing a takeover month at Pour More. So we're excited about that, of actually shipping a bunch of, United Bourbon and Rye plus Double Oak plus Barrel Proof to everybody too. So excited to be able to do that. And I'm excited to be able to partner with Greg and Pour More on this as well. Kind of talk about this, because this is one of the things that, you had mentioned. You'd actually reached out to us, right? This was something that, it kind of just goes to show you that he's definitely on the hunt for finding unique in different types of whiskeys to try to find for the audiences, because that's one thing about us is that we're not across the U.S. We're only in a very small part of the market, and even with that, the products that he's getting are not even in distribution yet, right? We're still working through that right now. What was kind of one of the things that either attracted you to this and to us, and then B, we had sent you all the bottles as well, so you could taste through, and had to get Greg's official sign off on it. So kind of talk about that process.
Yeah, and if you remember, Kenny, this goes back almost a year, right? We started talking last summer at first about making this happen, and through a series of this didn't work, that didn't work, and we didn't quite have the program together on our side, quite honestly, to make it happen. We had to put it off, and then as we got better at this, leading into sort of middle of 2025, I was like, I gotta get back on Kenny. I'm going back around Kenny. I know what I'm doing now. I know how to do this, so let's make it happen. So I found Pursuit on the shelf. Right? I found it in a liquor store here in Atlanta. It was on their special section. They had it up by the front register, and I was talking through with the guy, my guy there. Everyone's got their liquor guy, and I was like, walk me through what's new up here. I'd seen some of these bottles a bunch. The Pursuit one was new to me. I was like, oh, you should try these guys out. It was the Pursuit United. It was the intro bourbon at the time. It was the first one that came out, and I really digged it. And especially, part of it was also we had the Atlanta United soccer team here in Atlanta, and so I was like, oh, we had a soccer party coming up, so I had a United bottle I could bring. So the brand name was helpful for me at the time. But I got into the bottle, and then you guys released a rye shortly after that, which I went and bought as well. And so to me, it was like, okay, I looked it up. Limited distribution, you can't get it everywhere. It seemed like a great opportunity to find a brand that could go broader. I didn't even know you guys did all this other stuff, right? It was the juice was good, and I wanted to tell the story. And then we got into conversations about what you guys were doing. I was like, oh, this is some really cool stuff. You guys know it, and I love that you guys the podcast came first, right? You guys were doing the podcast first, if I remember correctly.
Oh
right?
Yeah,
that's right.
This whole bourbon brand.
Then you guys were like, hey, then we can go do this. We can go make our own brand and use our expertise to go build it, which was like, again, to me, is you guys saw the market, you saw what's out there, and you said, we have an idea, we have something we think we can do that'll be different. And so
we were overserved with that campfire talk. That's what happened.
You know what? You've got to be a little bit in order to make these things happen. Like no one goes into it being like, oh, I ran the numbers and this always makes sense. Yeah. So you got to be a little bit crazy to go do it. So we chased it, right? And so that's the same thing we've been doing, right? We've been working through this same process of like, what can I find that can't find everywhere? What can I find that's going to tell a story? And then reach out, have these deeper conversations, especially people who've worked with us in the past. So some of the ones we're doing now, like we have a couple months coming up. Three Chord is this month that's being sent out. We've worked with 3 Chord before. So it was an easier conversation to get into. Like, hey, let's talk about the new one. But like you guys, first time we're doing it. The ASW one's the first time we're doing it. Old Elk we have coming up in a few months, and that's someone we worked with in the past, but we did some custom bottles with them. So it's a mixture of people we've worked with, people we haven't worked with. And then you guys sent the bottles, and I really appreciate that because the bottles are fire. Man, those bottles are beautiful. I opened them up, and it was heavy. And it was open. I was like, oh, these are going to be, when people open these bottles up in the box, they're going to be really impressed. And so I'd love to say that I have like a really strict process for going through it. I'd love to say that I have like, this is my process. I sit down at this desk and I lay these things out and I do a blind tasting. But the honest truth is I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And I have a taste for what I think our people are going to like. Even though there's some things that are not my flavor, right? Like, so for instance, I told you guys this, like the double oak is not my preference, but I do know that we've gotten really good feedback on other double oak barrels. So I was like, people know what they want and people are into that. The triple mash and the triple mash cask strength were amazing. That was right in line. The cask strength one in particular, the rye was hitting for me. So I just go through it, right? And don't do it all at once. I did over the course of like 3 days. I did like 2 at a time, but I would flip, right? So it was one bourbon, one rye, one bourbon, one rye, mix and match it a little bit, just to kind of give myself time because we're not under a time crunch, and I'm not trying to do it in a way where it's. If I got to a place where it was so formulaic and so procurement minded that it wasn't fun, like that's not the place I want to be. I don't want to be at a place where I'm like tasting 800 things a day and then having to remember what they were. This is fun for me. It should be fun for you guys and fun for our people. So I want to taste it in the way that they're going to be tasting it. I love to pour a drink and like watch a movie. And so like that to me is like the experience, but also, I'm big into the experience where you are. So I do it by the fire. I'll sit outside. I like to talk about where people like to drink because that hits differently. So I just move around my venue. I don't, I have different venues in my house I like to enjoy it in, and that's my process.
Sometimes you're in a gamer chair, sometimes you're in a campfire, right? Whatever it takes to be able to enjoy that glass of whiskey.
Yeah. So talk
It's
about
funny because like I do all of our Instagram lives down here, like in this setup, because it's just a better lighting setup, but I don't have the bar behind me, right? So again, I didn't build it so I would have the bar behind. I don't have whiskey all over the place. I have it in a clean setup so that it's about the conversation and not about the bottles like around. So it does help to sort of like clean the environment for that presentation.
So talk about the future of the business. And, you read sometimes on Mark Brown's newsletters, you'll have like online sales are down, but then you read an article that says it's going to grow by 20% over the next 10 years. And it's going to be a major category and this and that. And so what are you all seeing? And like, why are you all excited about, this membership or, online membership business model?
Yeah. And the future's a little hard, right? Because the word whiskey glut comes everywhere, right? So everyone's hearing it. That's the phrase that was coined by somebody. So you hear it everywhere. So we know that there is product going to hit the market from all over the place, right? So there's going to be a simple economics game that'll happen, which is that there's going to be a lot of product hits the market. Prices will come down in some areas. You're going to have old stuff that shows up that they're releasing, or people are going to hold it, and then in a few years we'll have ultra aged kind of stuff, right? So what's fun in the next couple of years for me is that we've gotten to a place where there's so much consumer feedback and there's so much like activity happening that I think you're going to start seeing a lot more divergence in flavor. You get sort of the trending ones, like you've got, Burana whiskey had a moment and a couple things. So you're going to have some trending things that happen, but what you're going to see, I think, is people experimenting more and more and waiting to release until they have something that's actually unique and different, as opposed to like, hey, we have a 4-year whiskey, let's go. Let's drop it. It's like, well, we have 4 years. Sometimes people like finishes. Some people like this. We double aged it in 2 different barrels. We did this. Like, I just think you're going to start seeing way more personality coming through in these releases, because they're going to have to differentiate in the market. And there will be a market for people trying that kind of stuff. I think you're going to also see migration out of whiskey and other spirits for a little while. People try different stuff. It's people who went into whiskey who then made their way into tequila. They'll make their way into mezcal. They'll make their way back around. But whiskey as a leading category will probably persist. And I think what the analysts were kind of showing recently is you're going to see the category pick back up in a few years, but it's got to sort of work through the post-COVID bullwhip effect right now, I think.
When are we going to get through this is the big analytical question for you, Greg, but I feel like business side of things, we keep talking COVID. I mean, at some point we got to move on and stop talking about it. Where are we with that, you think?
Oh, I think it's over, right? I mean, I think it's I guess the problem for the industry is that when you're looking at things that have to be aged at least 4 years to really, want to be viable, we're still in COVID. If you think about from a 4-year perspective, right? We're at 2021. We're at the re-release of Delta, right? So, if you're thinking back to when people were making decisions, it was Delta, maybe it was Omicron by now, who knows? But like 2021 was a crazy time. And so we're still in that. So I think we probably have another year or two of decisions that were made in that time period. It wasn't just, it was the rise of whiskey as a category, right? I mean, the explosion of the lines and the weights. I mean, I remember when I could buy E.H. Taylor off the shelf, but no way, just walk up and, get it for retail price. And now, I got to hunt, if you want it, you got to hunt for it, right? Everyone's got the same story for their barrels, for their bottles. So, that all happened. I mean, better than I do, but it all kind of happened in that 2017 through 2020 and really kicked up. So we're still in that of everyone reacting to it. And that's the bullwhip that the industry has to take, because you can't just pivot on a dime. You've got to work through a 4 or 5 year cycle. So we're through it mentally, but I think decision making still is in COVID mindset.
Community tagline: pour more, quit hunting.
That's what we say. Like if you're the hunter, you don't want us. You don't want us if you're hunting. You want us if you're like looking for something cool to add to your shelf and try something new and find some new stories.
Very awesome, man. Well, Greg, I want to say thank you again for coming on the show today. You definitely gave a little bit of the insight. I knew we could talk about Pour More as the business and the concept, but I think what it really intrigues a lot of us, especially on this side of the microphone, is understanding more about the business. As Fred had said, you're not going to see complaints. I mean, complaints are going to happen every single side of the business, but understanding exactly like what are the complaints you see versus the complaints we see, and where do we find the similarities and commonalities between them as well. But I want you to give one more plug for Pour More, where people can find it, how they can subscribe to it, how, if you're listening to this and you think, well, I guess, my boss is getting into whiskey and maybe he or she wants a subscription and I can do this for Christmas coming up as well, or in whenever, our month comes up, you could do it then as well. So kind of just give one last plug for everything that you're doing.
Yeah. So, I will say one more thing. I think what we do a good job of from a categories perspective is we help broaden out who's actually buying, because as opposed to just the same whiskey buyers who go and buy, because of the gifting aspect, because that we're helping to expand horizontally the category of who is interested in talking about whiskey and bourbon and buying from different directions. So it does make it more of a conversation. So I think what Pour More does really great is helps bring people into a conversation, help bring people into a community, and we'll do more, right, to your point about building that deeper community and that experience. But we're building storylines. We're building stories behind brands, stories behind bottles, and making it more than just something on the shelf, but a real person that you've heard from. You understand the story. So you can find us at pourmore.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on all the socials, but pourmore.com, and you can buy personal subscriptions. You can buy gift packs in 3, 6, and 12 months packages. And then I believe we've got Pursuit coming up next month. I think we're shipping the bottles right now, right, Kenny? We're doing that. Yeah. So
we're having
August is yep. So August is the month. So sign up now through August 4th if you want to be on our list for getting the Pursuit bottle shipped out that you cannot find throughout the country. So come and join us.
There we go. Well, Greg, thank you again for doing this and sharing some insight into everything you're doing. Like I said, I think it's always fun. It's incredible to kind of just find yet another angle inside of the whiskey industry that we can tackle as a part of Bourbon Pursuit and be able to bring this to our fans. So thank you for doing that. Again, follow Greg, go sign up for Pour More, especially if you're always trying to figure out what the heck can I get next. That's a great avenue to be able to make that happen. If you like this show, you want to share it with a friend, please do it. That's the best way of sharing. You share with whiskey, share the podcast as well. You can go and just share Bourbon Pursuit and leave a review, leave a comment, leave whatever. You can do it on Spotify now. You can leave comments. I read them. I can't stop. I read every damn comment because I have really thin skin and I'm probably going to respond to it as well. But with that, cheers, everybody. Make sure you follow us on the socials too, and we'll see you next time.
Toodles.